So I will have to you run the just minimize and close this one. Close. Okay,
that
so
one, yeah.
we will clone
Okay, I will let that run in the okay.
Präsentation. Die ziehe ich jetzt auf den, genau, so auf die Reihenfolge auf. Ich habe jetzt natürlich noch nicht nummeriert.
So wie und anderen Ablauf dann. Was ist das hier?
Achso, warte, ich habe ja auch so einen Zeitteil gemacht.
Das haben wir
Ignorieren wir, glaube ich. Hier, ich habe hier so Dinger gemacht.
Ich habe hier Geld drin.
Okay, wie du willst. Das ist halt Minuten, das ist halt immer ganz gut, auch im Zweifelsfall vor die Leute zu treten.
Ja.
Also, wie du
Genau.
So, this is no water. Do you think we should grab some from the drinks table? Is there one set up?
I'm not sure.
No. It's not yet set up for us. It's going to do this.
We will have to survive without water.
The second one is.
I've seen a picture. Small. Mexican.
Black eyes. It's not natural. Oh, I have a little joke maybe with you on my presentation.
With me?
Yeah. Let's see. Some stuff on KfW for special qualified credit line. You say one use. If I come from €100,000. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
If I have 100 business area with 1,000 little business, and I can provide millions of euros.
That's better. Yeah.
So, funktioniert alles, das ist schon mal sehr schön. Ich habe es jetzt durchgenommen. Kaffee, das ist hier der Jochen, den kann man ja natürlich bei der Diskussion machen. Ich denke, das war ganz wichtig, jetzt nicht nebeneinander sitzen, sondern hier unsere quasi.
Also das heißt, du hast jetzt so
Agile Matei, dann kommt hier die
Summary.
We're waiting for Tour. Da ist die Agenda. Das ist schon am Beginning.
Okay.
Shadow report.
Sure. With you. With you. So she's the second stage. Wait.
So Simon, these guys have made me. No, my colleagues just think that I need to work. Which one? I'm here.
Just so if there's a
0 minutes, please finish. You're starting with that.
I think we. Yes. Let's move on.
How are you?
I am
Good to see you.
fine. I'm Stefan here from
Yes.
KfW.
All right, so you will tell me shut up now.
Yes, I will have a yellow card for you.
Right?
And you can sell.
You better be careful. She'll be the one who will take care of me when I'm going to throw me out.
No.
Tú la vas a estar viendo.
Initially, what 8 minutes?
So if you tell me it's 6 minutes or something, do something,
Yeah.
and then I'll start shutting down.
I'll show you the yellow card, so you will still have 3 seconds, and I'll show you the red card, and then
That's it.
you will have the last sentence.
And you have a lever you push, it's more than 18 order of
Exactly.
Heavily loaded. It's a great pleasure to have you here, Jochen Harnisch from KfW. Great you could make it.
Yes.
So it's a crowded panel, but I hope it will be okay for you.
Yes, we will be able to.
So let me just
The
take
word
this.
that you can combine.
German bank.
German bank.
Would you mind to move one further?
Okay.
Next to our chairman.
It's okay.
We need to.
So we need to squeeze.
I can see the
It's a little.
So, the order that I was told is something. Is this the order?
Yeah,
This
so
is the order. You're the
No, I know you're
I'm
the
the
first.
second.
I know you're the first.
This is it's a different. It's.
Is it?
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Roman?
Magda Ruiz.
No, GERES.
No.
Okay.
Once I've spoken. Okay.
Nice to
Then
meet
it's
you.
about a few minutes.
Igualmente.
No, now I'm here.
Gracias por la invitación.
Oh, I should be sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
We need enough chairs, otherwise
Lo que me digan que es necesario, adelante.
there's no one too much.
It's okay. Don't worry.
So we take that one.
So, 7 minutes. Excellent.
Okay.
My
Right.
sí.
¿Quieres presentar?
Avion?
No, it is
Je regarde pour le timing.
1 hour. 1 hour for presentation.
Accélère.
1 hour presentation. That's what you will allow.
Yes, it's 1 hour.
Okay.
I know that the unions are also very tough.
Yeah, we are rollovers. Once the Germans start,
Yes, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I will try to handle that.
so for the presentation, do I go there or here?
As you like. Really? As you like.
So I have to change slides.
Yeah, you can
Do it
or,
here.
you
You have a machine.
tell me they have a machine, but they need to fix it.
Okay. So then I'll just
And
sit
if
here
you-
and talk and sit next to you.
And if you need translation, because
Oh.
there are 2 presentations in French,
Okay.
so you should
Get
grab in front. Maybe Jochen can.
I think it's at the door.
Für die französische. Vamos a tener una presentación en francés. ¿O tú tienes o no?
Esto es lo mío, pero si lo puedo tomar.
No
¿Esto
sé.
es suyo?
Yes, it is.
Ah, entonces sí voy a necesitar. Ok, ahí me la va a prestar. Ahí Miguel me la va a prestar. Sí necesito francés.
Jochen?
Sí. ¿Sí va a haber traducción o no va a haber traducción? No, más o menos.
Creo que sí. Sí hay.
Ay, qué maravilla.
just launched this report today, Dr. Matto, Energy Efficiency Finance.
What on earth is that?
Sí, la verdad, qué maravilla.
What's energy efficiency? And what is funding?
Mira, averigua, averigua. Mira, por favor.
There are a lot of people. That's pretty good.
Everyone is like my friend.
Yeah,
Yeah, not Spanish.
People who need to pick up where's my card? I have yellow card.
Kind of friend. My English is less stressful. My French is not as good as my Spanish, but
Nice to meet you.
I defend myself.
No,
Yeah, great. Jamie.
entonces va a tener que ver.
Thank you so much.
Channel 1 et Channel 2. Là-bas, c'est Channel 2.
Vodka.
Vodka.
Yeah, okay. Alles klar. Yeah. Yeah. So, was jetzt an?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to open the official UNFCCC side event on financing energy efficiency in developing countries. What are the challenges and options available? My name is Stefan Zeb. I'm head of the Middle East North Africa department at KfW Development Bank, and I was invited to moderate the session today. I have a panel around me. I will introduce the speakers later, but I'm really honored to have such a huge panel with experts on energy efficiency, bringing experiences from different countries all over the world. The panel, the side event will contain 5 presentations from the panelists, and then we will have a panel discussion. I will open very soon also to the audience, because for me, I think it's very important also to get your point of view, your comments, and your experiences into the discussion. After that, I will wrap up, and just to be to share this also with you, we will have after the session some food and drinks outside, and you're kindly invited to participate so that we can discuss further on. For the ones who need translation from French to English, we will have one presentation in French, so please grab a headphone if you need to have translation. Having said that, I would like to introduce into the session, and to be very frank and open. When I was asked by the host of this session, which is my own bank, which is KfW, German Development Bank, which is on the other hand Carbon Trust, Carbon. Oops. I need to find my notes. Excuse me. But no, you can take it off. I think so. So we still have some technical problems, but yeah, resolved now. Okay, thanks a lot. So I can then continue to introduce the other host of the session. The second host is Carbon Trust from the UK. Carbon Trust is a non-profit company, an independent expert partner of leading organizations around the world, helping them to contribute to and benefit from a more sustainable future through carbon reduction, resource efficiency strategies, and commercializing low carbon technologies. And our second co-host is GERES. GERES is the Groupe Énergie Renouvelable, Environnement et Solidarité. It's a French NGO that works and is oriented towards energy, renewable energies, energy strategies, and environment and international solidarity. So we as KfW are very proud to count with these two co-hosts for this session. And when I was asked really to be the moderator of this side event, I asked myself if such a side event is still necessary. For me, energy efficiency as part of the climate protection and climate agenda is so obvious and so present in my daily life that I was wondering, do we still need energy efficiency and discuss energy efficiency at the COP22? But after some reflection, also then considering my day-to-day experience as director of the Middle East North Africa department, I have to recognize that yes, there is still some worth in discussing energy efficiency, and there's still a lot of work to be done. And also, to be very frank with our wonderful hosts of COP22, the Kingdom of Morocco, we do not need to go very far to notice that energy efficiency still needs to be addressed. On the one hand, and that is something that I personally really recognize and have to say, Morocco is very unique and very ambitious in its plans, and not only in its plans, but also in the concrete results of their way to introduce renewable energies into their energy matrix. We as KfW are very proud to be one of the financing partners of that chain. And the ambitious goals of more than 50% of installed capacity with the horizon of 2030 is ambitious, but I'm convinced that Morocco will be able to reach it. On the other hand, and this is also part of my reality in cooperation with the Moroccan partners, I think there is still a very long and difficult way for Morocco to achieve similar results in energy efficiency issues. But I'm also convinced that without achieving these results also in energy efficiency for Morocco, and to overcome this big challenge, it will really be very difficult also to reach the sustainable development goals that Morocco has set itself. So in the topic of energy efficiency, I'm convinced that it deserves a real higher up on the development agenda. Energy efficiency not only is an economic opportunity and has a vast market potential, but needs also a firm action to address the barriers that we see in different countries. And I'm really looking forward to learn from the panelists what they bring of experience from their countries. And not only we as KfW see that, also the co-host of the session, and only to quote some others, the International Energy Agency, IEA, now considers energy efficiency to be the most important energy source of all, the world's first fuel. Energy efficiency together with resource efficiency is the biggest social and economic opportunity of our era. That is the quote from the International Energy Agency. And also energy efficiency needs to be part of the ambitious goals that the world community has set itself towards the Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals. So for us, energy efficiency is a catalyst for universal access to modern energy services. Last but not least, also IPCC is talking about energy efficiency. Through energy efficiency measures, carbon emissions can be cut in a comparatively cheap way. Half of the preventable emissions until 2040 have to be gained from energy efficiency measures. But for that to happen, however, the annual global investments in energy efficiency must rise considerably by around 8 times, or in numbers, 1.1 trillion US dollars by 2035. I'm sure that also energy efficiency will be part of the German presidency of G20 in the next year. So it's also a top priority for our government. So the main aim of the side event is to share experiences, to bring in the experience from our panelists. And I'm really looking forward to learn from them. In order to allow us also to have a discussion with the audience, I will introduce some strict rules in time control. And as all of you know, Germans are very interested in football. So I did bring a yellow and a red card with me. Each panelist will, and I know India is not so, but that is reality here. So each panelist will get 8 minutes for his or her presentation. After 5 minutes, I will show the yellow card, and for the last sentence, that means the last minute, the red card. And with that, I open the panel, and I would like to introduce, first of all, Maria Magdalena Ruiz Mejia. She is a biologist, currently Secretary of Environment and Territorial Development of the government of Jalisco, federal government of Jalisco in Mexico. She has a vast experience in environmental projects and is secretary of that state since 2013, if I'm right. So, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm sorry for my pronunciation in English. My speak is in Spanish. And I prefer Cervantes. I love Shakespeare, but I'm so sorry for my pronunciation. Then I want to share that we was been the biggest obstacles and the biggest gains that have been made in the implementing to the carbon management. I think we changed this.
No,
It's okay? Okay, thank you.
everything fine.
Then we, okay, he's put my sliders. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, the biggest obstacles, of course, is the lack of the economic resource, and we have to realize that developing countries have very limited resources. So it is better to invest in few projects that give great results and with the saving finances to the rest of the projects. Other of the most common obstacles is the lack of the interest of the stakeholders or actors that it's important to report results and progress in the continuous way. So then to they see who is working. Like Loyola said, actions speak louder than words. I have to share is working with carbon trust. I very grateful for accompanied with us. We developed the first is the part of the pilot in our country. We designed the carbon management plan, consolidate Jalisco as the first entity in the west of the country to be selected. We target is reduced to 40% of the emission compared with the best year. We have technical support to Carbon Trust and embassy to the British government. He was working together with us. And we are ready to pass to the next steps. In the second phase, we are ready to many pilots phases. We start to work with many buildings in administration, many buildings. I destack education sector, policy sector, and the administration sector in our government. Also, here, okay, thank you. We estamos, bueno, este es acá. Okay, the state government is developed a proposal to encourage the use of electric vehicles and become the leading states in the area. We put a new mobility in a public space, public policy instruments, tax incentives, and electric corridor. We have a green plate, subsidies, plate cost, annual endorsement payment, vehicle purchase tax, and vehicle verification exception. We are still working with other municipalities, and we are support to change to vehicles to electric cars. Also, my governor, we had working together innovation and technology, environmental and sustainable, and economic develop secretaries together to develop to the Jalisco Energy Agency. Then these three secretaries of the states worked together 2 years to develop this agency. It is just acaba de salir, just born to the Congress of States. Say yes to this agency. It is ready to work these functions to the agencies formulate and sorry for my English. I'm so embarrassed. My Spanish is very beautiful. My English, the next time, I prefer the next time, the next COP, I hope my English is better. So sorry. As the agency is focused in four objectives. Is in the pantalla, and we are working together with Israel. With California has agreement with the energy of these states. Con Canada is working together when Ontario, and with Germany, Baden-Württemberg is working with this agency since two years ago. Okay, then where we want to is innovation, economist view, incentives and, of course, environmental sustainability work together in this agency. Then, is ready, is with too many JASO partners in these countries. He has, the agency has 2 millions, no, 20, no, 100, 200 of millions to start to work. This is a good money to begin it in our country. Then we have a green phone. He is ready right now. Is a great, it's a good phone, green phone, because this phone lo tenemos listo with 100% to the paid, to the verificación vehicular. I don't know what is the relation to the, that is vehicle verification. All the money who citizens pay to the vehicle verification, all the money who the citizens pay to the taxes in environmental, and all the money to the sales or the environmental issues is to the green fund in our states. Then these green funds is work with Banco Mundial, yes, Hacienda, I don't know what is the
Ministry of Finance.
Ministry of Finance in my stage, and other funds very recognized, very knowledge in our country for to finance private funds, international funds in our stage, funds work together in sustainability in the next years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. Muchas gracias.
So sorry.
Really, I know it's difficult for you, but I think you received a warm applause from the audience for the effort, and I'm sure that in the discussion you will add some interesting experiences from your region in Mexico.
Okay.
Is coming. We have another technical problem, but I will not forget now to introduce our next panelist, Mathur, sitting right of me. He's coming from India, from the energy number one.
¿Qué parte?
No, no.
Do you
I will.
Yes, the Spanish.
There's this one.
Next time in Morocco, the region of no first language from Morocco. Like that.
So he's from the Energy and Resources Institute of India. He's the Director General of that institute. TERI is a non-for-profit policy research organization working in the fields of energy, environment, and sustainable development. TERI is considered a leading think tank dedicated to research for sustainable development of India and the Global South. And as I know, you also have been a negotiator for India in the COP21 in Paris. I'm sure that you can afford a lot to this panel. Please.
Thank you. And for the next 80 minutes, we have to push. Let me share 758 minutes. So what I wanted to do was to share the energy policy experience in India regarding energy efficiency. What has worked? Why has it worked? what are the kinds of lessons that we can draw from it. Now, first of all, I think we start with the premise that there is a huge deficit of energy supply in India. The quality of life is relatively poor. It's about 0.56 on the Human Development Index. And the energy use is about 0.8 tons of oil equivalent per person per year. And if you notice this graph, there's no country with a Human Development Index of 0.9 or more, which uses at least 4 tons of oil equivalent per person per year. So this gives you an idea of the paradigm this world lives in. If you have to have a good quality of life, you have to have a high energy consumption. Challenge: how do we provide this energy without ruining the carbon budget of the world? Now, the good thing is that while energy use has been increasing in India, the energy intensity has been decreasing, largely at about slightly more than 2% per year. One, because prices, particularly compared to our incomes, are very high. They're very high in absolute terms for industry particularly. And because there has been a shift towards the services sector over the past decade. But approximately half of the decrease in energy intensity is because of energy efficiency actions alone. Now, we all understand that as far as carbon emission reductions are concerned, large part of it, as the chairperson of the session said, large part of it will come from energy efficiency. Okay, so what do we do about it? We looked around the world and found that there are things that have worked everywhere. And lo and behold, they worked well in India as well. Whether it is the standards and labeling of equipment and appliances, whether it is CAFE standards for cars, whether it is the energy conservation building codes for buildings, all of these things, we looked at the world experience and shamelessly copied them. And believe you me, they work like a charm. Wonderful. So do I need to come here and say anything? Your job is already done.
Okay.
No.
So we have
No, we have 800 minutes left or something of that sort. The problem was that there are many areas where global experiences did not fit. And I'll give you 2 examples. One is in energy intensive industry, and the other is in the case of lighting. In the case of energy intensive industry, what we found was that no matter which sector we went in, we found that some of the world's most energy efficient units were in India. Okay, so what's the problem? We have no problem. While some of the most efficient were in India, there were others which used 3 times, 4 times, in some cases 6 times as much energy to produce a ton of cement or steel or textile compared to the best. Short point, it is the bandwidth which is our problem. How do you address bandwidth? Well, ever since countries started putting in policy to address industrial energy efficiency, the bandwidth has not been a problem. It may have been a problem at some point of time in what are today developed countries, but clearly this was in a pre-policy time. So we were stuck. And therefore, to cut a long story short, what we said was everybody has to become more efficient. But the guys who are already efficient, their percentage reduction in their specific energy consumption will be small. And the guys who are inefficient, the percentage reduction in their specific energy consumption will be large. In other words, if you are inefficient, you have to do a lot. If you're efficient, if you're amongst the world's best, you have to do relatively little. We picked up the 478 industrial units in 8 sectors who accounted for about 30% of the energy used in India and said, here is what you have to do. It is a mandate. By law, they were asked to reduce their specific energy consumption. Well, they substantially met and exceeded their goals, which just told us that we set our targets a bit too low. So now in the second cycle, we have those plants. We also have new plants in the same sectors. We also have new sectors that we have added. We now have something of the order of 900 plants covered in the second cycle, who account for about 40% of the energy consumption in India, the total energy consumption. Now, this was a new experience. We needed to make sure that the companies agreed with it, huge amount of consultation. We needed to make sure that the targets were fixed in a completely transparent manner so that there were no questions of favoritism. We needed to make sure that there was a cadre of people who could go and inspect and find out what the specific energy consumption was. All of this needed a lot of infrastructure and capacity building. So as this gets over, the first cycle got over and the second starts, we are still left with a lot of policy questions. Short point, you need to keep on learning. You need to make sure that as you do it, you get data which can help you answer and make the program even better. The second issue that we faced was lighting. And we said in about 2010, 11, 12, we want to change all lights to LEDs. By 2012, the price of LED lights in the market were about a little more than $6. And even at that price, the savings I would make would pay for it in 3 years. But did I buy it? No, I didn't. It was too large a sum of money. If it failed, then there's too much. It's too much at stake. There was no pickup, and prices were not declining so that the markets could increase. So what we did was we created a company called Energy Efficiency Services Limited and got 4 of our blue chip public sector companies to provide the equity for this company. So they formed the company. And then this company got into an agreement with electricity distribution companies. They said, we will provide your consumers with LED bulbs. What you do is that every month in your bill, add about 20 cents. 20 cents is the cost of an incandescent bulb in India. Add about 20 cents till we are able to recover our money. And by the way, if the bulb fails, it will be replaced, no questions asked. He's saying I have 20 more minutes. It took off. And then ESL turned around and procured bulbs in bulk. And as they procured them in bulk, the first procurement they did, it costed about $5, a little more than $5. And by the 6th procurement in September this year, it had dropped to about 55 cents. High quality LED bulbs probably are the cheapest in India as compared to anywhere else in the world. And how many have been sold? 178 million and counting. There's a website that you can go to which tells you how many have been sold, and it's updated every 15 seconds. To make this company needed money. They had the equity, they needed debt. Debt is expensive in India. So who did they turn to? They went to KfW.
So you get 5 more minutes.
Ah, lovely! I knew that. See, I tell you, you go to KfW and you get a good deal. And with the help of a government guarantee, this was debt that was manageable. Now, of course, as they've grown, their own credit rating has grown. They're able to get high quality, low interest debt. But don't forget that in the beginning, when you have a new company, you need to make sure that low cost debt is available, because in an LED bulb, it's so expensive. Much of the money is in the first cost. So as we go ahead, what are the questions? There are still issues. How do we make the quality even better? We have a base. We want to make it better. How do we, now we've got a huge amount of manufacturing capacity. LED bulbs last a long time. What will happen to this? So short point again, as in the case of the industrial program, we need to keep on figuring out what are the questions, the policy questions that pop up. Have these made a difference at a macroeconomic level? We are now seeing that about 6% is the amount of energy savings that occurs every year. Our goal is to take it to 10%. Short point, counting is important. As long as you monitor it, my minister is happy because he can show it. It works. The program kept getting his support. And political support was amazingly important. So the last point, as you move towards energy efficiency policies, what are the kinds of transitional challenges? First and most important, make sure that you have people who can do it. Typically, countries don't. So again, I turned to my left. GIZ provided us with people who had done energy efficiency in the past, who were standing there to answer questions. I don't have data, what do I do? Okay, use this as surrogate data. It'll be a robust decision. Second, keep learning both from global experience and your own experience. Make sure that you have early successes. Early successes are amazingly important to make sure that government and political buy-in is there. You have credit worthiness in the market. Consumers think that it is worth it. This is a learning process. It keeps going on, but believe you me, the results are worth it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for the additional 5 minutes.
well deserved, and thank you for the interesting insights into your experience in India. Now I have to struggle here in parallel with
Escape.
just escape. Okay. Everything is gone. Now I have to find. Yeah. Now we are going to number 3. And here. So Jochen Harnisch from KfW. Jochen is the head of division of the Climate and Energy Policy Unit at KfW Development Bank. And since 1999, Jochen has been part of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, in various functions. Most recently, as coordinating lead author of the chapter Investment and Finance of its working group 3 on mitigation. Jochen, please.
Okay, good afternoon. I mean, there's no no use in topping Ajay's presentation, so I will try to present a development bank perspective and not go into the mechanics of the political process and the implementation, but I hope it's still insightful for you. KfW is the German development bank with large domestic operations in Germany, operations in OECD, but also in developing countries delivering ODA, official development assistance, and climate finance on behalf of our government. This shows you the time series of total commitments of KfW in million euros. So this is 70, 80 billion euros per year for the different programs. And the green bar is what we do on energy efficiency. So that's actually pretty large. I mean, that's between 10 and 20 billion euros we commit for energy efficiency each year. But to pour water into the wine, most of that is in Germany. And you can barely see this light green bar on top of the dark green one. That's the international part, which is still largely OECD and only a very little bit in developing countries. So that's about your point, Stefan. I mean, there is something left to be done. Energy is the largest sector in KfW Development Bank when it comes to delivering climate finance and development finance. It's about 2 billion euros of new commitments with approximately 2 million tons of CO2 saved per year through these commitments, and providing access to about 2 million people per year through the new projects. I mean, largely our energy portfolio is about half of that is renewable energy by now, which is good. But transmission and distribution is the next one. I think certainly a very important issue when it comes to access. also to integration of renewables, and demand side energy is only 12% now. And if you look at this small part of demand side energy efficiency, 30% is industrial sector, again, another 30% is SMEs, so that's basically related to each other. And then buildings follows with a 23, so that's pretty small, and consumer appliances is only a very small part of our portfolio. So we must admit that even though our domestic programs are really large and well established over decades, our international work on in energy efficiency is still in its infancy, despite of these massive domestic programs. The main barriers are the well-known ones: project size, complexity, limited attention by decision makers. We aim to scale up the size of our demand side activities in 2017 and 2018. Let me show a few examples from our portfolio. I mean, quite early, we have started to execute energy efficiency in public buildings programs in Southeastern Europe, where, I mean, we could make, I mean, the climate is somewhat similar to Germany. And so, I mean, we worked a lot with in development banks to refurbish public buildings, schools, hospitals, and at the same time move them up to a modern and appropriate level of energy efficiency. These are typically projects with sizes of 6 million, 15, 20. So these are, I mean, moderately sized projects which bundle individual investments by working through development banks or through the government ministries. I think quite an important example, or a well-known example, is EcoCasa from Mexico. I don't think I need to go into great details. I mean, it's something we are implementing together with our Mexican partners, and IDB, CTF, World Bank. It's now going through a second phase, and I think it's quite a successful program, where the highly energy efficient buildings for also lower class, if I may say so, people is really reaching a very large scale and very significant energy efficiency improvements, and emission savings are being made. Yeah, I think Ajay already introduced EESL. I don't need to redo that. I think that's a landmark project. We wish we could duplicate in other countries. I mean, there was really a unique situation, a unique political ownership, and really the desire to lift this off, which made this possible, and we were happy to provide the concessional funding for this. Another example, which is less well known, from India, is where we worked together with the National Housing Bank and tried to transfer some of the experience from the European energy efficiency programs in labeling the energy efficiency of buildings, introducing standards, and where we provided a 50 million concessional loan to the National Housing Bank. So, I mean, I think from the two previous interventions, it became very clearly that obviously financing is important, but it does not go anywhere. And I may not get any extra minutes from Stefan.
It's not
I'm
so
sure.
easy for you.
No nepotism. Information, consulting, and of course the national legislation, rules, regulation, technical standards. I mean, that's deeply intertwined. This is something that makes it so difficult to really get going on successful energy efficiency programs in countries, because you need to have all three of them in place, and probably the financial part is the easiest of the three. Just to show you an example from Germany, the kind of digressive reduction of the legislated energy efficiency standard for buildings. This is kilowatt hours per square meter and year. So we started back in the 1980s with the first ordinance mandating a certain energy efficiency standard at above 250 kilowatt hours. And that was, as you see, reduced continuously for new buildings over decades to a level of now about 50 kilowatt hours per square meter and year. So this shows you that, I mean, these programs need to be in for the long run. I mean, KfW has supported those, and it provides a predictable planning perspective for architects, for house owners, and housing societies. It shows that, I mean, this is not a static thing, it's a dynamic process. Conclusions from a development perspective, before I get the red card from Stefan. Legal framework is important. Capacity development involving planners, technicians, workers, auditors, but also the retailing of equipment, of energy efficient equipment is critical, and that needs to come together with the appropriate investment support. All of these need to go hand in hand, and then I think we can really be successful. We should avoid being technology prescriptive in most cases. I mean, LED is, I mean, it is technology prescriptive, but I mean, that's a somewhat simple choice when it comes to building the building envelope. I mean, you would prefer to focus on performance and demand rather than prescribing technologies. You need to be very clear on energy efficiency baselines when you require certain energy efficiency improvements. I think the experience on aggregation of small efficiency measures is growing rapidly. I think we have made quite some way. I mean, we are, I think, quite happy in a quite fortunate situation that often we have very short payback times, so that de-risking, which is so critical for renewables, is, I think, less of an issue in energy efficiency, even though in ESCO models that is sometimes relevant. We, as Ajay, I think, showed very nicely, enhancing energy efficiency needs a long breath. You will have broader transformational results only after 5 to 10 years in the sector. And it remains a key challenge to find the political champions and, from a bank perspective, credit-worthy partners to get this going. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jochen. I'm trying to do in parallel again. There are two persons from our co-host GERES. This is Romain Cres. He's head of a program supporting small businesses. He works in Morocco also with domestic bread oven manufacturers, in Mali on the establishment of green business areas, and in Myanmar with actors in the improved cook stove sector, and also in Tajikistan in the promotion of bioclimatic habitat solutions. His co-presenter is Dr. Rashid Shriki from Morocco, from the NGO NSEN, Energy, Solidarity and Environment. He's member of the board of this NGO. Dr. Shriki oversees the project Sustainable Hammams in Morocco, led by NSEN and GERES. This project, and he will explain us hopefully more about that, seeks to find solutions to the question how we can maintain the tradition of hammams in Morocco without having a negative impact on the environment. Please.
Bonjour, merci Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, honorables assistants. Excusez-moi, donc juste pour éteindre. Donc, je vous souhaite, en tant que Marocain, un excellent séjour à Marrakech et au Maroc. Permettez-moi de vous amener dans un secteur, je dirais, traditionnel au Maroc, qui est en fait le hammam. Mais on ne va pas emprunter cette porte, mais on va emprunter une deuxième porte qui est en fait la partie chaudière du hammam. Donc, le hammam, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas un peu je dirais cette structure, c'est un service très connu, très ancien, et il a vraiment ancré dans la tradition marocaine et qui permet en fait de tenir les liens sociaux et religieux, etc. Et en général, il y a au moins 80% des Marocains qui y vont au moins une fois par semaine. Donc ça, c'est dans la culture marocaine. Et en général, globalement, on a à peu près 10 000 hammams au Maroc. Donc, comme vous savez, donc les hammams utilisent des chaudières, je dirais, traditionnelles, et donc avec une efficacité énergétique très faible, et avec aussi une pollution atmosphérique significative. Donc, pour vous donner un chiffre, c'est équivalent à 5% des émissions des CO2 du pays. Donc, c'est pour cela, les deux ONG, donc GERES, Groupe Énergie Renouvelable, Environnement et Solidarité, et NSEN, Énergie, Solidarité et Environnement, travaillent depuis 2013 sur un programme pilote de rénovation énergétique des hammams sur un financement du Fonds français pour l'environnement mondial. Donc, les deux associations ont attaqué un segment particulier, en fait, de moyens agro-hammam, donc qui ont à peu près 10 ans d'existence, au moins une fréquentation de centaines de personnes par jour, avec une consommation qui est importante, de 750 kg à 1 tonne de bois par jour par hammam. Ça, c'est quelque chose, en fait, c'est un chiffre très important, avec, je dirais, une utilisation des chaudières à faible performance énergétique. Donc, les deux NGO sont intéressés, en fait, et ils ont proposé, en fait, un bouquet de solutions. Donc, mixte, chaudières, ballons, les systèmes hybrides, etc. Et pour ramener, je dirais, à une diminution de la consommation de bois d'au moins 60%. Sinon, on remplace aussi le bois par d'autres combustibles de biomasse. Et avec un délai de récupération sur 7 ans, pour un hammam moyen, en fait, et c'est un investissement aussi lourd. Donc, c'est environ 80 000 €. Et je dirais, donc, nous avons travaillé sur 5 déjà hammam pilotes qui sont déjà sur place, mais je dirais, fallait retenir ces chiffres-là pour, par exemple, rénover au moins 10 000 hammams dans ce segment. Regardez, il y a un investissement déjà de 80 000 € et une économie de bois de 200 000 tonnes par an, et pour éviter environ 100 000 tonnes par an. Et donc, il y a des barrières, en fait, à résoudre, donc à franchir. Donc, c'est comment, en fait, permettre l'accès au crédit pour ces propriétaires de hammam, comment financer l'assistance technique, comment atteindre vraiment un délai de récupération, un retour sur investissement qui pourrait être inférieur à 7,5 ans. Et donc, le propriétaire de hammam se retrouve dans une situation un peu complexe. Donc, comment, je dirais, réfléchir à des incitations, comment en faire des études et une assistance technique, comment bénéficier, en fait, des crédits, comment, je dirais, avoir accès à des équipements. Donc, c'est ça la question, en fait, d'un hammam. Donc, si on prend un hammam, je dirais, qui cherche à rénover son hammam, donc, il y a au moins, je dirais, un investissement de 96 000 € avec un délai de récupération de 14 ans. Donc, c'est beaucoup. Et donc, si on réfléchit, par exemple, à un scénario qui est déjà, en utilisant un mécanisme déjà existant au Maroc, c'est le MORCEF. Donc, on peut ramener ce délai de récupération à 12 ans. Si, donc, un autre scénario de cette solution, plus les incitations de l'État et bénéficier des crédits bonifiés, donc, on peut aller jusqu'aux 7 ans. Et si, en fait, revenons, en fait, à la consommation du bois et des émissions causées par ce secteur. Donc, c'est un secteur, en fait, très émetteur de CO2. Donc, si on réunit tout ça avec le crédit carbone, on peut ramener, je dirais, le délai de récupération à 4,5 ans. Et vous voyez, donc, il y a un effort considérable, en fait, à mettre en place pour, comme vous savez, dans ce secteur, il est, dans la majorité, c'est merci, Monsieur le Président. Dans la majorité, c'est des informels, c'est de l'économie informelle. Donc, ils ne peuvent pas avoir accès à un crédit, ils n'ont pas les compétences pour avoir accès à une assistance technique. Et donc, les deux NGO travaillent sur des mécanismes à proposer, et nous pensons, en fait, à une ESCO, la mise en place d'une ESCO, ce qui peut, je dirais, jouer ce rôle d'intermédiaire entre les propriétaires de hammam avec, je dirais, l'environnement, comment accéder à des incitations financières, comment, en fait, accéder à des subventions pour les études, une assistance technique, comment accéder à des équipements, etc. Et c'est une société, donc il peut être éligible vis-à-vis des banques, donc ce qui fait qu'il peut avoir accès à des crédits en fait taux raisonnables en fait. Et tout ça, ça permet en fait de rénover un secteur qui consomme beaucoup de bois et qui est vraiment un secteur émetteur de CO2. Donc, l'ESCO, pour nous, c'est une solution, c'est un mécanisme et qu'on interpelle en fait tous les intervenants en fait dans ce secteur étatique, bailleurs de fonds, etc. pour, je dirais, réfléchir là-dessus. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci beaucoup. C'est plus.
So you have heard about the famous ability of French people to speak English, which is il est 17h46, je suppose que tout le monde est bien fatigué. Je vous annonce que c'est l'heure de l'efficacité énergétique en milieu rural et pour des secteurs productifs. Le docteur Rachid Shriki vous a emmené au Maroc dans ses hammams. Moi, je vous emmène en Afrique de l'Ouest. Je vous emmène plus précisément au Mali, sur une zone d'activité électrifiée que nous avons réalisée. Et je vous emmène encore plus à la rencontre de ces femmes de la coopérative Nous Pas Gagnons. Quand le GERES a pensé à faire une zone d'activité électrifiée dans ce village, à Conseguela, nous sommes allés voir les acteurs économiques pour leur demander quels étaient leurs besoins en énergie. Et ces femmes-là nous ont dit, on a une coopérative d'arachides, si l'électricité arrive, on aimerait bien avoir une deuxième activité qui est une activité de froid. On a des fruits, des mangues, des bissapes, du gingembre à valoriser, on peut faire des jus, des boissons fraîches. Et on a même un peu d'argent pour acheter un congélateur d'occasion. Alors là, on s'est dit, bon, bonne nouvelle, on a peut-être une entreprise de plus dans notre zone d'activité, mais attention, si toutes les entreprises ont des équipements inefficaces, à ce moment-là, on va avoir un problème. Nous, on a une petite centrale hybride, on ne peut pas fournir de l'énergie à profusion. Et de notre côté, si les activités dépensent trop d'énergie, elles ne seront pas rentables. Donc, c'est perdant-perdant. Alors, on s'est fait une petite étude rapide et on est allé voir quelle était la différence entre un congélateur d'occasion et un congélateur neuf, basse consommation, qu'il faut aller chercher à Bamako, à 400 km. Et on s'est rapidement rendu compte qu'il fallait moins d'1 an pour récupérer cet investissement. Donc, dans ce cas-là, on a mis en place une solution rapide. On est allé voir l'institution de microfinance qui était présente. On a aidé à ce que ça se fasse, avec une garantie sur le crédit, avec une bonification de taux pour que le coût ne soit pas trop élevé, et aussi avec un appui de renforcement, avec un conseiller qui les aide. Et cette situation de cette coopérative, dans ce village, des femmes que vous avez vues, c'est la même pour des milliers ou des millions de petites entreprises en Afrique et ailleurs. On se retrouve avec ces 3 barrières à franchir. La barrière, il faut accompagner. Bien sûr, tous les entrepreneurs n'ont pas forcément besoin d'accompagnement, mais il y en a beaucoup qui ont besoin qu'on les aide à structurer un petit peu leurs activités, à leur trouver ces technologies efficaces. Il faut leur permettre d'accéder au crédit, souvent en mettant un peu de garantie, et il faut améliorer les conditions de crédit. J'ai travaillé 4 ans dans la microfinance. Je suis fier de certaines choses, mais pas forcément des taux de crédit, 18, 24 et plus. Donc, les solutions, elles sont là. Et voilà la bonne nouvelle, c'est que les 3 congélateurs sont maintenant sur la zone d'activité. Cette activité a démarré depuis 8 mois. Elle fait un chiffre d'affaires de 10 000 €, 2 000 € de résultat net. Bravo. Et probablement plus parce qu'elles ont commencé à anticiper le remboursement de leur crédit. Nous pensons qu'une zone d'activité d'entreprise comme celle-là, c'est un vecteur de développement économique avec l'accès à l'énergie. Aujourd'hui, c'est une petite zone, on l'a déjà doublée en capacité, mais elle représente déjà 100 000 € de chiffre d'affaires, une boulangerie, une menuiserie, une radio qui s'installe actuellement. pourquoi nous pensons que... Vous m'entendez encore? Pourquoi nous pensons que cette zone d'activité électrifiée peut être une solution? C'est parce que depuis que je suis arrivé ici, j'ai dû suivre une dizaine de side events et j'entends toujours la même chose. Il faut combler le gap. Et finalement, c'est un outil qui peut permettre de faire venir des technologies, on sait qu'elles existent, elles sont là, de faire venir des financements à des taux intéressants, on sait qu'ils existent. La microfinance s'est déjà déployée. Et ces millions de TPE, elles ont besoin, un, de s'électrifier, c'est ce qu'on propose, deux, de s'agréger. Parce que si demain, je vais voir Stéphane à la KfW et je lui dis on a besoin d'un taux bonifié, est-ce que vous pourriez nous aider à baisser le taux? Bon, il y a besoin de 100 000 euros. Il va me dire 100 000 euros, trop petit. Donc nous, on a besoin d'agréger, on a besoin de créer. Actuellement, on est en train de créer 2 autres zones d'activité. On espère en faire plus pour pouvoir réunir des centaines d'entreprises et les amener vers cette efficacité énergétique avec l'idée que peut-être ce seront les Africains qui seront les champions de l'efficacité énergétique demain. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Romain. My office is always open, so you can visit me there and we'll see what I can do for your partners in Mali. Last but not least, it's a pleasure to invite Trust. He needs the thing. He is director for Latin America at the Carbon Trust, overseeing the Carbon Trust offices in Mexico and Brazil, and managing projects and the development of new business across the region. He's a member of the board of Carbon Trust Mexico and a trustee of the New Economics Foundation. Simon.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be here and to co-host this event with KfW and GERES, and also to be with all of you. It's also a pleasure today to share some findings from a new report that we are publishing today on energy efficiency finance. There are copies at the back on the left as you go out if you would like to pick one up. The title of the report is Available, Attractive, Too Slow? ? Why those words? Well, available because energy efficient technologies are available. Attractive, the terms and the returns that you can get from investing in energy efficiency are attractive. But are the technologies and measures being adopted fast enough? Arguably, they're not. It's happening too slowly. So what can we do to accelerate the uptake of energy efficiency by financing the technologies effectively? Well, to turn to the next slide. The question was posed at the beginning of the session. Do we still need to talk about energy efficiency? And one of the first arguments that the report makes is absolutely yes, we do. We know from the IEA that energy efficiency is the linchpin that can keep the door to 2 degrees C open. It's critical too if we want to make that transition to a low carbon economy affordable. Not only that, but of course it has multiple benefits. We've heard them before, saving trillions of dollars across the economy in terms of energy costs, reduced air pollution, boosting productivity, etc. However, there's clearly a big gap between what's needed and what's being done. The IEA concludes that in order to keep that door to 2 degrees C open, we'll need to see investment of over $550 billion a year in energy efficiency within a decade and a half. That's double what we're currently investing in energy efficiency across the public and the private sectors. Clearly, the private sector can't do this on its own. There are major market barriers that impede progress, and that's why the public interventions are so critical. Amongst the players that can have a major impact on this debate are the multilateral development banks, like KfW and others. We know that at the moment, 2015, the latest figures available, just $2.9 billion was invested by the MDBs in energy efficiency programs. Now, quickly skipping ahead, this shows you just how much compared to other sources, to other investments, energy efficiency represents. It's about 14% of MDB mitigation finance last year. That's half what's being invested in renewables. So the question that we've posed ourselves, is that enough? Is that investment having the impact that it should be having? And if not, what does best practice look like? To answer those questions, we looked at case studies from around the world, 10 case studies in 5 continents, looking at a range of different solutions funded by a number of different donors. We also reviewed evaluations of those programs. We interviewed experts and practitioners from MDBs, commercial investors, program implementers, and public institutions, as well as drawing on our own experience of 15 years of designing and delivering large-scale energy efficiency programs. And we really focused on 3 things. What defines a successful program? What are the steps necessary to design them effectively? And what does best practice look like for achieving lasting change? And in answer to the first question, we focused on 2 things, not just achieving energy efficiency, reduced energy demand, and greenhouse gas emissions saved per unit of resources invested well, but also how to continue activity beyond the lifetime of a program. The key steps that we think anyone involved in designing an energy efficiency program should go through, the key questions that they should ask and answer are these, and we applied all of them to the case studies that we looked at. Firstly, what is the target market? It's obvious, but it's interesting, a number of case studies we looked at, not always answered well, and when that isn't answered well, programs fail because the target market isn't well understood and the characteristics that drive them isn't well understood. Secondly, very importantly, are there drivers for action? And here we mean economic drivers, or the right pricing signals being sent around energy prices, carbon price, competitiveness, and policies critically. Are the right policies there, the incentives, the standards, the regulations? If they're not, then a program's success will be severely curtailed. And the argument, therefore, is clear. Investments needed to ensure the drivers are there. Is there a supply chain in place? Again, an obvious question. But we've seen examples of programs where key elements of the supply chain necessary to transfer knowledge, to transfer technology, to transfer capital are not there. And so programs have failed as a result. What are the barriers? Mapping them systematically throughout the supply chain, identifying the key ones and prioritizing them. And then number 5, identifying solutions to address those barriers. Far too often we've seen examples of programs where only some barriers have been addressed through solutions being applied. And often those have been finance focused. There's been a heavy preponderance of focus on the finance without addressing the technical barriers, the barriers around needing to raise awareness, ensuring that the programs are sustained. How can that happen? How can we ensure that beyond the lifetime of the program, demand for and supply of finance for energy efficiency continues? I've been given the yellow card, so I'm going to accelerate and draw out 3 conclusions. There are many conclusions in the report, and I'd absolutely urge you to pick up a copy and have a look for more detail. It's clear that we need a major change in approach, we think, to drive improvements at the scale and pace required when it comes to energy efficiency. And if we had to pick 3 recommendations from our study, this is the first. We need much stronger government policy. Business cases for investment need to be strengthened by strong policy frameworks with the right economic and regulatory drivers. And influencing those has to be vital. Just to illustrate briefly the scale of the gap, only 1 in 3 countries have energy efficiency targets in their NDCs. Currently, there are no energy performance standards for 70% of the world's energy use. Unless we address energy efficiency and send strong policy signals, it'll be very hard to drive the change we need. Secondly, we think far more focus should be given to technical assistance than has historically been the case. If you look at the proportion of spend that MDBs invest in terms of the different instruments, the vast majority is in terms of loans. Under 5% is for technical assistance and support for raising awareness, providing advice, and de-risking investments. We think that balance needs to change so that awareness raising, pipeline generation and de-risking are given the support they really need to provide vehicles for capital to be invested in. And lastly, we think when it comes to the supply chain, it's really important to build local skills and trust across it. If you had to pick two actors in that supply chain to really support, we think they're suppliers and technical advisors, because they have the greatest incentive to identify, appraise, and deliver valuable projects. And that's certainly been our experience. So to wrap up, we think this is a vital agenda, and it should be higher up the list of priorities of governments, donors, the Green Climate Fund, the G20 and other fora of that kind. We need to invest more, we need to invest better and change markets. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Simon. I think that was, in summary, really interesting and helpful presentations from all panelists. One just left. I hope that he will show up again, because the India experience really also impressed me. I will directly open the discussion to the audience. So may I invite you to present your questions? We have 2 mics over there. We might need a volunteer to hand the mic around. And I already see the first person to okay,
Thank you very much to all the presenters for their very interesting discussions today. I have 2 questions. One for my colleague from the New Economic Foundation. Are you familiar with the G20's Energy Efficiency Action Plan? And if you are, what are your thoughts on how robust it is, how useful it is as a framework to help drive international activity and governance around energy efficiency? And my second question, going to be a little provocative here. How do we make energy efficiency sexy, and how do we sell it? Renewable energy is something which we can all get excited about because we see the immediate benefits. It's very tangible. You can put panels on your roof, or wind farms out in the paddocks. Energy efficiency is very intangible in that regard. Sticking insulation in your walls, having building codes, very unsexy topics, but extremely important. So how do we get the public to buy into these technologies and these policy ideas? Thanks very much.
Yeah, there's a question over there. I just will bundle a little bit the questions. No, first was the lady. It would be nice if you can introduce yourself so that we also know where you're coming from. And yeah, please.
Thank you. My name is Nyari from Zimbabwe. I'm developing a project in energy efficiency. My question is to Carbon Trust. Just looking at the map where your activities are, I'm not so sure whether that's there's very little activity below North Africa. And I just really wanted to find out whether that's a policy thing, or perhaps it's your not being aware of our involvement in energy efficiency too.
Thank you. Over there, we begin in the front and then go back. Yeah.
Bonjour, moi je m'appelle Ousmane Traoré, je viens du Mali. Donc je vais intervenir en français. Hein, voilà, donc alors moi je suis entrepreneur, j'installe une entreprise en fait de services d'efficacité énergétique et environnementale. Alors moi la question que je voudrais poser, c'est que j'ai fait le tour, je suis allé visiter en fait le fonds vert pour l'environnement, les institutions bancaires et voilà. Mais tout ceci en fait me disent qu'il faut, eux ils traitent avec le gouvernement, les États. Ouais, ils me disent de faire en sorte que mon projet s'inscrive en fait dans un programme étatique. Bah, le problème c'est que vers chez nous, les privés en fait peuvent être plus en avance ou sinon plus motivés à aller vers ces services-là que l'État. Donc, est-ce qu'il y a un système en fait qui permet de traiter d'organisations en fait qui peut financer et d'organisations à privé directement, sans passer par l'État, parce que souvent nous on est, je veux dire, on peut être plus en avance en fait sur l'État. Il faut attendre que les institutions se mettent en place, il faut attendre que le cadre juridique et légal se mette en place, ainsi de suite. Mais entre-temps, nous, on a un projet qu'on peut réaliser. Et moi, j'ai toujours dit, en fait, l'efficacité énergétique, plus on perd du temps, donc c'est quelque chose, on met du temps à la mettre en œuvre, donc on perd, en fait, en réduction d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre, on perd en pas mal de choses, en fait. Voilà, c'est ça ma question.
Thank you. So, after the three questions, I will invite the panelists to answer. I think there was one specific one for your
Yes,
Simon.
happy to answer that. So the map that we showed was simply a map of the case studies that we looked at. Actually, we do work in Southern Africa. We have an office and a team in Pretoria, and we work across the region and in East Africa as well. So we're very committed to doing more in Africa and keen to support that effort. Just quickly, in answer to the question about how to make energy efficiency sexy, if I could too, something we have thought a bit about. It's not easy. You have to find the right message for the right audience, and it will vary, obviously, and the right messenger to deliver it to, because that varies. In our experience with business at the Carbon Trust, focusing on how energy efficiency can save money, can help you beat your competitors, be more productive, is one that resonates. With householders, it'll be different depending where you live. Of course, in the UK, you might focus on making your house warm. Might be a factor given how cold and leaky some of our building stock is. In other countries, it'll be different. But it's really important to tailor the message and the messenger according to the target market.
Thank you. And there was another question for you, or?
The sources of finance outside the state, of course. That's one of the big challenges, and you know others are very well equipped to answer that. So,
maybe.
Yeah, on this issue of state partners, I mean that's of course a very valid point. I mean, most of this is taking place under the umbrella of official development assistance, and it requires a state guarantee for the loan provided. Indeed, we frequently end up working with state partners. I mean, of course, there are sometimes special fund vehicles, structured funds, or credit lines with commercial banks or with national development banks, which can help to solve this problem. But I mean, at least for us as a development bank, I think it applies to many other, to obviously MDBs. We are fairly constrained in with whom we can work. Of course, in IFC, they can directly work with private sector companies, but again, the size of the loans is pretty large. I mean, you're talking about at least several million euros or US dollars per individual loan, which is typically way too large. So it's a good point, a challenge for the future.
Merci pour cette question sur le Mali. Je partage en grande partie votre point de vue. Bon, l'électricité, c'est souvent une activité dans sa production et dans sa distribution qui est gérée par l'État, encadrée. Donc, il y a une certaine inertie liée à l'État. Mais nous, on se rend compte dans nos projets que tout ne passe pas par l'État. Bien sûr, on a entretenu un certain nombre de relations pour pouvoir créer des zones d'activité électrifiées, qui sont une activité qui est autorisée. Mais ensuite, une fois que c'est fait, on est libre. Si les projets d'efficacité énergétique proposés permettent de réaliser des gains, des économies substantielles, à ce moment-là, je reviens sur le schéma qu'on développait tout à l'heure, c'est qu'à ce moment-là, il y a une rentabilité, il faut la démontrer, c'est la partie technique. Ensuite, il faut la financer. Et là, on essaye de trouver des solutions, comme on l'a dit tout à l'heure, à travers de la garantie, à travers de la bonification de taux, d'accompagnement. Nous, on le fait à toute petite échelle sur subvention aujourd'hui. L'idée, c'est de pouvoir le faire à plus grande échelle avec des partenaires, notamment banques de développement, impact investors et ce monde-là, qui cherchent vraiment des projets. Le problème, c'est que souvent, ils n'arrivent pas à trouver de destination pour tous ces fonds. C'est sûr, je ne veux rien dire contre la centrale de Nour qui est financée en grande partie par le KfW. C'est un superbe projet. Et ce sont des projets de grande taille, où tout de suite les millions passent. Sur des projets de petite taille, il faut pouvoir agréger. Donc, il faut que les solutions que vous proposez puissent correspondre à un certain nombre d'entreprises, à une quantité, et qu'à partir de là, on puisse aller présenter cette efficacité énergétique comme étant un vecteur vraiment de développement. Et là, je pense qu'on pourra trouver des moyens de financement.
Thank you. Then I will open again. There were some questions over there. Yes, please.
Hi, hello. My name is Vanessa Villa from Perspectives, and my question is for the representative of KfW. And I just want to know, how could you see the role of carbon markets in complementing other climate finance streams for energy efficiency investments? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there more questions in the room? We have one over there and one in the back.
Hi, my name is Mauricio Iribarren. I work for Climate Strategy and Partners in Madrid, Spain. And this is a question perhaps for all the panelists, because the gentleman from Carbon Trust has said, you got to tailor the message and you got to tailor the messenger, correct? But the problem that perhaps we encounter in Spain a lot of times is, how do we convince people of appliance failure and the fact that they have to incur some sort of credit? With that said, how big does the role of government have to be in terms of regulation? And it's a shame that the gentleman from India left, because he perhaps would be with the more like hands-on on such a topic. But regardless, I'd like to have your take on such a thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Asin Zia from University of Vermont, and I have a question. Like, a lot of the emphasis has been on supply side policy development and incentives, but really not much about the demand management issues like incentive provision or like smart grids and smart meter deployments, some of these other new technologies that are coming in to stimulate efficient markets. So I was just wondering, like, what are your thoughts about whether KfW would be moving in that direction?
Thank you. So I think there was one question or two questions for you, Jochen.
On the issue of carbon markets, I mean, it's of course politically non-correct to say, no, I don't see a role for carbon markets in connection to energy efficiency, but I don't see an evident or prominent privileged role. I mean, I think we have heard in all of these presentations about the complexities. I mean, this is a personal view. The UK Carbon Trust may have another institutional view, but to me it seems, I mean, it's a very complex subject, and to add a kind of a very complex or additional complex incentive scheme on top of that does not seem evident to me. Obviously, you can come up with systems that could connect the two, but it's another layer of complexity, which I would try to avoid. Obviously, CO2 pricing, higher energy prices, of course, can achieve a lot for energy efficiency. On smart metering and similar approaches, I mean, we don't distinguish. I mean, basically, to us, supply-side energy efficiency actually addresses the generation side and transmission and distribution. So we don't make that disconnection or this differentiation. So it's something that, looking in, I mean, we have a few projects about which we didn't talk, but again, like in Georgia, remetering, but it's often quite basic stuff to introduce metering, not really smart metering. But I mean, this is something we'll also be looking in for the future.
Okay, and then we have the maybe final question from Spain that all panelists could, if they want, answer, and then I will close the session.
Thank you. Yes, a very important question. I mean, from my perspective, the role of government is critical. If you can regulate. If you can put in place standards for appliances, for buildings, for cars, for industry, then absolutely do. Minimum energy performance standards are vital. We should be looking at putting them in place where they're not currently in place for political reasons, because it's difficult. For example, at the point of sale of a house, Should you have to upgrade the energy efficiency of it before you can sell it? Maybe you should. But of course, the politics does enter into this, and you have to make the case, and you have to bring the public with you. And on that journey, voluntary programs are very important, and that's been the focus of a lot of our work. And the two can go side by side, I think, if you get them right.
Then we have en español.
No, yo creo que se necesita también tener muchísimo valor y coraje, encontrar políticos que se atrevan a hacer esos cambios en los arreglos institucionales necesarios. Y el arreglo institucional no solamente es la ley, sino la operatividad de políticas públicas que se instalen. Y eso es muy difícil. Ya hay cada vez más políticos que se están atreviendo a hacer eso en los países en desarrollo. El caso es Jalisco, pero mi caso es un gobernador muy joven, con una visión hacia el futuro, que sabe trabajar con políticos con esta visión antigua y que confía en grupos técnicos especializados alrededor de él. Eso es realmente muy afortunado. Pero también decidió absorber el costo político de imponer a los ciudadanos ciertos pagos que históricamente no habían existido de manera obligatoria en mi estado. Se dieron algunos incentivos también, y esos incentivos hay que hacerlos visibles a los ciudadanos. Yo dije que hablaba bien el español, entonces... I'm so sorry. Don't answer
No, I will.
English.
You had a translation.
No.
Yes. If not, I can also sum up what. I know that he did it, but not all had the headphone on. So I will try to summarize again. I'm sure that he did it better than I will do. But what Maria told us that. To really introduce such projects, you need politicians that are really brave, because it's not an easy task, and not only to introduce, but then to follow up and to implement is really challenging and very difficult. She has a very good experience from Jalisco, based on the governor, a young politician convinced that this is an area that he needs to work in, and he will work in, and so he is imposing and really bringing the issue forward, which on the other hand for him has also some political cost, because it's not easy to do so. And as I understood, he managed to transfer part of that also to the citizens, so that I think it's a very good experience that Maria is bringing from Mexico. So there was a very final urgent question in the front row. It's a comment. Oh, maybe we should close the session with a comment.
Well, I just. It's about the question about the sexiness of the energy efficiency, because I think the answer is actually from the question of our friend from Mali. Direct access to funding, I think, will keep it. Energy efficiency is sexy already, so it's just like direct access to funding will keep it. I think what's happening in the middle between the policymakers and like what is this small entrepreneur is trying to reach, that's where we lose that sexiness, I guess. That's
Okay, thank you. So I will not summarize. I think it's too much that has been said, but I am personally taking with me that energy efficiency will be or is already an issue. It will be also an issue in the future. I think there were some wonderful examples from India, from Mexico, from Morocco, from Mali, and from the work of Carbon Trust that we can all learn of and take it with us and bring it to the next COP. I hope one COP will once take place in Mexico, that then you can speak in Spanish and you will have a perfect translation for all the audience. So looking forward to have that. Thank you. ¿Sabes que mi esposa estuvo en Guadalajara la semana pasada?
Ah, ¿verdad?
Sí,
Mi ciudad es muy linda.
sí, yo lo sé, yo estuve en...
Para que la gente... Ah, muy bien. Qué bonito. Es una montaña.